Everyone, welcome back to Inside Gaming Reviews. Today we're talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The warfare has never been more modern. The guns are very real and don't have weed leaf skins on them yet. And Zach is here as our resident Call of Duty expert to take us through the game.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare expert, because concession off the top that before Black Ops 4, I hadn't really been invested in any COD games since Modern Warfare 3. So just want to say off the top, I might be a little ignorant to some things that I may seem that are like new changes, but they might just be like returning features. Because again, haven't really dipped into like them as much as I have this game, which holy crap.
Yeah?
I've dipped into.
I mean, it seems like the vibe with a lot of people that it's back. It's back, baby.
Yeah. I mean, so there is a lot to talk about here, so I want to kind of blaze through presentation because my God.
Weed.
Ooh,
nice,
damn.
Nice.
We didn't even make it a minute in before we got a weed reference.
Of course.
The game is very pretty, but there's so much to talk about with the other modes, so just to like really dive into it real quick. So frame rates, butter everywhere, especially on PS4 Pro. My God.
It's a new engine, right?
New engine really helps sell that. There's a lot of frame rate dips in cutscenes, which is a little...
You know what, I noticed that too. I think they do a lot of loading behind cutscenes that isn't quite optimized, so even if it's a pre-rendered video, it chunks up pretty hard, which is weird. Especially since I actually really like campaigns in Call of Duty, so...
Yeah, so that's whatever. Slow loading textures in the campaign, also not too bad, but I definitely noticed some texture pop in, which is super not immersive when you're like breaching a house and it's like... Is that wall supposed to be just all jet black?
And that's breaching into 2004.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as the sound design, I could spend an entire review talking about only the sound design.
Yeah, the guns are mad. Like a sniper rifle crack is so angry in this game. It's kind of hard to describe it any other way, but sometimes when I get blown away by a sniper, I'm like, whoa, okay, I deserve that for how mad that sounded.
Yeah, no, a crack is exactly the right way to put it. So just take with what we say here a grain of salt that everything bad about this game is immediately offset by amazing sniper rifle cracks. Yeah. So let's get right into the campaign. Before we go there, I think we should establish that we're essentially reviewing three different games here. There's the campaign, which has made its long-awaited return. There's the multiplayer, which is kind of the bread and butter of this game, and then there's the like Spec Ops survival mode, which we'll kind of get to last. So with the campaign, it's not really anything groundbreaking. It's still very solid. It doesn't try to be the COD 4 campaign, which I really, really appreciate. It's definitely doing its own kind of tactical, slowed down thing. Oh,
really? It's not just run down hallways with explosions going off all around you, shooting terrorists in the head? There's a little more to it than that?
There's definitely some Michael Bay moments where it's a little set piecey. There are some really standout set pieces that are just nice and slow. The game is best when it just slows down and embraces its kind of realistic roots. There's one mission in particular that has you storming a house in London at night, and it's very like Zero Dark 30, and like tap the guy on the shoulder, and then he goes in, and you're using night vision goggles where you can't aim down the sights. You have to use like the laser sight on your gun to see where it's going. It's really cool. It's a very refreshing change of pace from like wall running jetpack madness.
It's gotten a little wild. So, but how would you compare that to something like All Gillied Up, which is a level a lot of people remember, but it does involve you just sort of sitting in grass most of the time?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting into about. I don't think this game is trying to be COD 4's campaign, which again is a good thing, because All Gillied Up, I think they tried to emulate that in subsequent COD missions, especially in the Modern Warfare series. There's always that like one standout mission that they try to be like, I remember in Modern Warfare 2 there was the airport level.
Yeah, no Russian.
Yeah. So I think that house storming level is kind of for me their version of an All Gillied Up, where it does feel like a tip of the spear, kind of like this is the best this game can be when it really just embraces what its DNA is about.
Damn.
And it's like All Gillied Up in that it's not meant to be this like action movie, but it's a little bit more, like I said, like a Zero Dark 30 kind of slow tactical, and like it's more like a what's the mission on the airplane? Mile High Club?
Mile High Club, yeah.
Yeah, okay, it reminded me a lot more something like that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so Captain Price is back.
Yeah, he's kind of the titular character. He's the face of the game now.
Yeah, he rules.
Which I guess he has been for a while, or at least for the Modern Warfare series.
Yeah, he's a better developed character this time around. He still retains that whole like leader you'd follow into battle without question kind of like mentality, but he's slightly more like action hero-y, I guess. He's more like, he's got that like little tinge of G.I. Joe to him, where like he somehow is younger, it seems.
Yeah.
He did like the Sam Fisher aging in reverse thing.
The Bond rebirth kind of deal.
Yeah, he's a little less like I'm a grizzled old war vet that's just getting too old for this shit, and he's more just like, oh, you got a problem? Chuck a grenade in there.
So how does that work out? Because maybe we'll touch on this in a second, but this game purports itself to be more real and gritty and raw. So how does a hero character exist in a story like that? Are they just the moral compass of the whole narrative, basically?
Moral compass is an interesting way to put it. There's a few instances, without getting into too much narrative territory, that he kind of lets your character is this like young guy that it kind of attaches to his squad because he's proven himself, that's one of your characters, but Price is kind of like showing you the real grit of war and how like sometimes just bad shit happens and you gotta just like take the lesser of evils and move on. So he's not like painted as like an anti-hero, but he's painted as this just like
a realist kind of.
This is look, bro, like this is how war is, dude.
How it is. You
people are gonna die.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like annoying. Before we move too off the campaign, we do need to bring up the whole Highway of Death controversy.
Yeah, that was something, huh?
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time getting into it here, but it is a stupid ass move on Infinity Ward's part to include this specific mission, and I think it's worth talking about just briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave you to Google the real ins and outs of the whole Highway of Death events as it pertains to real life, but this specific mission basically like rewrites history to pave over a moment of American war crimes and like positions America as this whole like the USA swoops in to rescue the day at the very site of the atrocity they committed. And it's weird, and I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions there on how you feel about it and how much that impacts like how much you would want to play this game. But for me, it's just a really unnecessary narrative choice.
Do you think it would have made the narrative better if you came to realize that you were working for a government that had committed war crimes and you were trying to do the right thing? But do you think that would have fuzzed up the narrative too hard to say, like, now you're fighting on behalf of a country that has committed a war crime?
Yeah, I mean, like, that would obviously provide much more narrative depth to that beat. I think Call of Duty is capable of doing that, but I also think that they have had a pretty decent track record of just trying to provide shock value.
That's true.
I mean, the No Russian mission we talked about a minute ago is essentially just in there for shock value. It is in there as like a headline grabby thing, and I think that there were ways they could have done that mission that were a little less like likely to grab headlines and would have maybe provided a little bit more story meat. And I that's why I say I don't want to spoil too much, but I think that's a similar.
Call of Duty 4 is like getting caught in the periphery of an atom bomb going off, or was it just a normal? I think it was an atom bomb. I can't remember. But the idea that you play as like a character that dies. And then you switch to a new one just to show you kind of how disposable people in war can be. That was a cool moment, and not necessarily as try-hard as No Russian, which I still liked, and I thought it was a cool moment in narrative gaming, but I see what you mean. I do see what you mean.
Yes, as far as like that whole feeling of weirdness with how they are kind of doing this like revisionist history stuff, there is some kind of weirdness with the whole like fake Middle Eastern country.
Yeah,
Urzikstan. Yeah.
Very much not Syria, but it's Syria.
Yeah, it's meant to just be this like kind of catch-all analog for like troubled Middle East that's been invaded by the Russians since the 70s, and it's like it works, but like Russian fans are understandably like pretty upset without giving away too much of the story. They're pretty much positioned as the archetypal, this is a bad guy because they're Russian dude. There's a little more nuance to it than that, but it feels very like 80s action movie premise for a bad guy where the main antagonist in the game is kind of this mashup of like every era of Russian territorial expansion in the last 100 years, and it feels really weird and like I said, kind of like 80s action movie where it's like, oh, we have to get to bad Russian, and that was really bad Russian, by the way. I don't know what that was.
I mean, good enough for an 80s action film, basically.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So, it sounds like there's a bit of a weird mismatch in that some of the gameplay is actually pretty profound and interesting, like the level you referenced, but then the plot details are pretty like 80s Michael Bay of just like bad foreigner invading, and then America will come in to defend the world. So
yeah, and there's shades of like of themes of like, well, if we all drop our differences and work together with like here, but it's tries to be nuanced, but it kind of comes off as like, well, here's the bad Middle Easterns and here's the good Middle Easterns, and as long as you're with the good Middle, it's It's weird, yeah. Big thing though to talk about is the multiplayer.
Of course, yes. This is the thing that people will be playing for months and hopefully years to come.
Yeah, it's a little early. We're still just a couple weeks out at the time of this recording, so there's still obviously a lot of like the meta that's going to evolve, and we'll see if people kind of just take to it over time. It's much slower than the last few years of the kind of wall running, jetpack, exosuit space madness. That is most exemplified in the time to aim down sights. It is way slower, and that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, even with like perks and everything.
Yeah, there are perks that and attachments that you can use that will decrease that. But as a just blanket statement overall, the time to ADS has been drastically slowed down in an attempt to kind of make the game feel a little bit more tactical. And that's not. I don't say that as just like a box quote. It's like that's meaningful. Okay, it's like a slower, more tactical game.
Well, it's the sort of deal where if you're already pulled down sights, looking down a firing lane or something, and somebody sprints out, odds are you're going to take them down before they can pull the sights and get you, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It stands to reason. There's I've noticed in the community way less like shame being placed on you for hard scoping. It's like I Call of Duty to me is like the quintessential like. The kill cam, pops up, and if you've been aiming down sights for a few seconds, people are like, oh, like you can't even quick scope, can you? Shit like that. Quick scoping is really not that much of a viable strategy in this game.
And yeah, and I feel like it's been fading away from CODs for a while. Ever since they took out snap aiming, really. It's like, okay, you just get them in the center of the screen and pull, that's fine, but I'm very much a fan of the head game of Call of Duty rather than just sprinting and shooting everything in front of you. And the head game is knowing what players are going to do before they do it and being set up and prepared to take advantage of that. So much of this is like, yes, be in the right spot, be out of lanes of fire, be in cover, be looking down your scope, and get someone when they didn't expect you to be there. So I'm into that. And also the super low time to kill, like you were talking about, I think rewards that too.
Yes, the time to kill is extremely low and very unforgiving. It's in that way, it is very similar to any COD that you've played multiplayer, that you will die a billion times. You will have matches where you go like 2 and 18, and that just happens. But when I was getting into like the whole idea that this game's like slowing everything down is like that's in its DNA, like baked in from the bottom. The new engine really helps sell that. We talked about this a little on the daily, but it's definitely a more substantive shift towards slowing things down than say like COD World War II, which just kind of slapped on a 1940s coat of paint, but it was like the same fast-paced shooting. Whereas like in that game, it felt really weird to like sprint, slide, and pop up with a Garand and be like, I got the Japanese guy. It's like, okay, like no, like they changed it. It's not a different coat of paint. It's a new engine, and that really sells this. It adds much needed like mass and inertia to everything, to every movement, to each weapon.
Do you feel like that's a bit of a hard shift for players who really like the run and gun kind of Call of Duty? Do you think that there's a hybrid style that people can play there? Or is it really, if you're sprinting around like an idiot with an SMG, you're just going to get taken advantage of?
No, I mean, there's still the fast-paced run and gun, spray and pray type Call of Duty that everyone knows and loves. It is a substantially slower feeling game, but that's not to say that stuff is completely gone. It's you need to be a little bit more aware of the mass that your character carries as you're running down a hallway. I've noticed you trigger like claymores like way more. They're like way more hairpin triggers than usual because I think it is like slightly harder to kind of stop yourself and be like, oh shit, that's a claymore, and like try to do like a weird back jump thing. It's like you'll see it and think that you're just far enough away from it to not trigger it, and maybe you can like get that corner pop, but then like. That one pixel hits and then your body goes flying 8 feet down the hallway.
Some of the ragdolls are pretty intense, especially like the airstrikes and stuff. And just people flattened out against walls and stuff.
You just clip through the wall where like
you're
just your torso.
Your legs are hanging out. That's war as hell.
You just turn into Green Goblin and Spider-Man just through the wall.
So how about the modes? Because like Kill Confirmed is not there. That's interesting.
It is.
Oh, it is? What?
Yeah, it's
what?
It's weird how they handle it. It's a separate mode from Quick Play. So there's like a Quick Play playlist, and then Kill Confirmed alongside Ground War,
all the classics
one. Yeah, those are like separate modes within that multiplayer dropdown.
I did not even find that menu. Gosh, okay.
So we'll definitely get into this. The menus are extremely obtuse and like damn near take a degree in like Egyptian hieroglyphs to be able to get through. We'll talk about that more in a little bit.
Sure. So one of the things that I've definitely noticed is the map design. You know, that for a long time Call of Duty's kind of devolved into almost a MOBA style of like there's 2 ends of spawn points and then 3 lanes betwixt. and you just you roll your dice on the lane you're going to run down, and hopefully you run into some people, or maybe you can cross over in the middle and get behind. But this seems much more like arena style, maybe kind of shades Nuketown a little bit, but even more so. Just like it's just a big open map with spawn points all around, which I feel like cuts both ways, but what do you feel about that?
Yeah, you're totally right. They ditched the kind of 3-lane structure. It's drawing more from the classic Modern Warfare series style of these sprawling kind of asymmetrical maps where you don't have like one enemy spawn point doesn't have to be like geometrically symmetrical on the other side of the map, but like mirrored so that everybody has the exact same amount of times to run down their lane. The maps are kind of a downer for me right now.
Okay.
But I think it has a ton of potential to improve vastly in the coming months. Maps are pretty so-so here at launch. Hopefully they'll add more if it's anything like past Call of Duties, and I think that would be a real treat if they embraced their Modern Warfare roots and added a bunch of maps from 1 through 3. We saw recently a supposed leak of files from the game that showed 38 maps will be added, including some pretty like old fan favorites from.
How would they know that already?
Well, so it's a list of map names leaked and leaked by modes. So there's like Crash and Shipment and Air or Sub Base and like all the old classic ones, but they're broken out into like what types of modes they'll fall into, which is I think what's giving that little bit of legitimacy to the leak. It makes me wonder if Modern Warfare is just actually going to lean into the whole like game as a service, and like this will be Modern Warfare for years to come, and they'll just keep updating it. I would say like Overwatch, but we just
now there's
Overwatch 2, so
and certainly if this sells well, there will be a Modern Warfare 2 at some point. But yeah, to your point about map design, one of the things I think that is gold, or is the least expected, is that you're kind of used to just sprinting around the map and then spawn swapping and stuff like that, and that being part of the experience. Now, fundamentally, there are maps where if you get the high ground, like there's one that has a bridge in the middle, if you get, and both teams rush up there, because if you get the high ground, you can fire directly into the enemy spawn.
Yep.
And since time to kill is so low, and the guns are pretty damn accurate, you can conceivably never swap spawns for an entire match.
Oh yeah.
And I played a lot of rounds like that, and it almost has a Battlefield feel at that point where you have to move from cover to cover, you have to move very quickly, you can't cross any ground in the open while being fired on or you're dead. So there's a lot of like using bangs to cover distance, moving from cover to cover, sprinting in short distances, laying down cover fire so other people can move forward. Like all of these things are things that never really existed in a COD. I love that stuff. So this is super my flavor, but I get how people who are just used to sprinting down lanes and like pulling ADS and shooting, may not be for them. It's like my girlfriend is a very big run and gunner, and she is not a fan of that map design at all. She's acclimating a little bit, but you're right, slowing down is the name of the game, and that seems so contradictory to the DNA of Call of Duty.
Yeah, and they've started to, like, even as far as the kill streaks, they've started to bake in perks that will let you play that slow style and like actually give you a chance to, in Call of Duty, it's like, oh, I'm used to having a life that lasts like 30, 45 seconds. Now they're like, no, like let's give you an ammo resupply box so that when you find that really nice corner tucked away in the back of that map and you're gonna set up a sniper's nest and you inevitably run out of your sniper shots, if you're doing well, you just pop an ammo box down and totally reload, and it's like you got a whole new life. So they are clearly like doing things like to substantively make you say like, if this is the way you want to play, you can absolutely play that way. And I do think it is the preferred way to play this game.
Okay, cool. How do you feel about the guns? Because that's kind of,
Yeah, we gotta talk about the guns.
That's every Call of Duty, right? That's all you're staring at for most of the game.
Yeah, honestly, the guns are the main character in this game. They are on front and center display, and it's pretty awesome. The gunsmith is their kind of gun loadout editing tool. It is overwhelmingly customizable, which was absolutely daunting at first, but as I got more comfortable with it, I've really started to enjoy making my loadout feel specifically mine. Like, this is my gun.
Got the anime girl decal right on the side.
And there's none other like it. I really felt like I was a gun. You really feel like a gun.
It's 2019 and we guns out here.
You can there's a charm you can attach to it that you get really early on. That's just like a 6-pack of beer.
Sick.
It's like, or no, it's a 4-pack of beer, but one's missing. So it's like, you're so edgy. You've already drank one.
That's what we're doing it for. We're defending freedom and 4 packs of beer.
But yeah, the gunsmith and like the way that they position it is almost so you get this sense that it's like Activision clearly trying to keep that Destiny flavor alive, where it's like the looter shooter kind of they position weapons to be almost like loot in Destiny with like gun rarities and specific like cool edgy names for guns. So it'll be like, it's not just like, oh, if you do these series of objectives, like get 8 headshots with this, do this. It's like 8 rings of objectives. Then you unlock the like, not just the M4. It's called the like Blazing Dawn Rifle of Death, and it's just like, yeah, it's weird. It feels weird in a Call of Duty game.
Is it rewarding to do that though? Like,
yes.
It's just, is it pretty like disposable stats of like this has 45 accuracy instead of 43?
So
it's like, well, what does that matter if it's 2 bullets to kill someone anyway?
Yeah, no, and that's a really interesting point because I don't know that it would make that much of a difference on moment-to-moment gameplay. I do think it is kind of that whole like bragging rights, like cosmetic thing. It's the crazy rare skin in CS:GO or something like that.
But I'm okay with that. That feels fine to me.
Yeah,
especially since kill cams, like that's when you kind of style on the person you just killed. So
yeah,
if they see that you have if you're bringing the heat, if you got the juice, that's when you show it all off. You're done like a little 4-pack and your blazing chrome gun.
And yeah, I mean, hey, Call of Duty is it's no shame to like have that be a primary motivation because it's
what else would there be? Kill
cams is like the bread and butter of Call of Duty, and it's like you want other people to see you destroying them with the sleekest gun possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. There's also some like pretty welcome quality of life updates. I'll just run through a few of them here. There's you can now reload while you're aiming down sights.
Yeah, and if there's any proof that the game was designed to use ADS more, that's it. It's like you don't have to pull out of it to reload and then go back in.
It is a wonderful addition because you can, like you said, like it is all about just if you don't want to lose that advantage if you took the time to like sneak around the back and get that nice line of sight position, and that can all be for naught if you are zooming in and out real quick to try to get the reload. Especially with the mechanic that they introduced where there's glare on the sniper rifles.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So
like a Far Cry thing.
Yeah,
a million years ago.
But as far as like the good quality of life updates, they've added being able to edit loadouts in the game, and that is an absolute godsend because you can change your loadouts on the fly for how that specific match is going. So, for instance, you could in past games you would have to wait until you went back to the lobby to say like, okay, I want to take claymores off and put on frag grenades. Well, now you can just, as you're about to respawn, you can go in, edit those claymores out, and then, run up the lane with your frag grenades and throw them in there, and you don't have to, you can just be way more nimble about the loadouts you have, which kind of lends to that whole, this gun is mine, this loadout is mine, it is perfectly tweaked to what I want in this one situation.
Improvise, adapt, overcome. Every cool bumper sticker in one video game.
Another addition is mounting weapons. It's nothing crazy. I don't know that it's like changed my gameplay, but it's a cool alternative way to kind of like handle cornering. And it's really nice for if you're a sniper that uses not like the long-sighted scopes, but more like the scout, like ACOG style scopes. You can just like post up on top of a crate with your sniper mounted, and it is just like beautiful. There's a little shooting gallery as people come down hallways because there's no recoil at all.
Recoil is really low on most guns in general, I feel like.
Yeah, it's weird. Because I've seen so many kill cams that I just scratch my head out where I'm like, this dude is putting 100 shots out on me on a machine gun, and his recoil is just.
Yeah, bullets don't jump, or the guns don't jump around very much. So that, in combination with the low time to kill and the there's not a lot of damage fall off either, not like previous Call of Duty. So
yeah,
if you get someone and they're not looking at you, you basically got the kill.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, some other changes that they made I think are a little less welcome. They've now switched enemy tracking onto a compass at the top of the screen versus your mini-map.
It is both. I mean, red dots still show up on the mini-map, but yeah, you get the little red triangles on the compass.
Yes, so
unless they're silenced.
Yeah, so to clarify, in past Call of Duty games, when an enemy would fire their weapon, a dot would, unless they had perks that hit it, their dot would show up on the mini-map, and you could see like in location to where you are, where they are. Now their dots only show up on the mini-map if you use, say, like a UAV or a personal radar. And when guns are being fired and they're not suppressed, the red dot pops up on the compass.
Oh, I thought, okay, so there must have been UAVs up. Okay.
It's kind of leaning into that that Fortnite kind of like you're seeing a visual indicator of the direction of fire, which makes sense for like a sprawling open battle royale game where like you can use the compass to be like, all right, guy at 330, but hallways. I don't know how effective that is.
That's a good point.
They've added I guess you call it like a narrator to the multiplayer that can definitely be helpful where they'll call out areas of interest where it's like,
Ice-T's back? Yeah.
"Do me at the cafe."
I wish. Someday.
Yeah, like there's a narrator that'll, you'll be on the other side of the map and it'll say, there's an enemy at the bus, and if you don't, and it can be really helpful if you know where those landmarks are.
I assumed those were callouts from like the other players in the match. Like how in Overwatch they'll say like, oh, there's an enemy at Piper, I need healing or whatever. I assumed that was the other players doing like automatic AI callouts and stuff.
I didn't even think of that. That actually might be the case then. Yeah, that makes sense. I just assumed that the voice was changing depending on what team you're on.
So that could be it too. But you're right. They do call out a lot of map locations that. It is interesting because they do try to standardize sections of the map and give them explicit names.
Yeah, there's like named locations within tiny little maps.
Which I feel like is good. I mean, most people will develop their own language about individual maps and name things different things. So giving them explicit names, I think, helps with communication, especially if you're joining up with people you never play with. Mm-hmm. But those callouts mean nothing to you. Yeah, when you're at the ruined building and you're just looking down a street of bombed out buildings.
Which one is the most
you're gonna
ruined?
Have to point to one. So yeah, I get what that is a little confusing early on.
And then the other thing they added in that is nothing new, but they added sniper glare in, and it makes sense for larger maps, and it's clearly taking a page off of Battlefield, where that is almost necessary because snipers are so far away that you need some kind of handicap to be able to see where they are. It is super annoying in smaller maps because you can just be like down a long hallway. And the second somebody comes around, like it doesn't matter how crouched or prone you are in a shadow or behind a barrel, like the enemy comes around that corner and they see that big glaring spotlight of your sniper scope.
That's a good point.
And it's basically, that's what it is. It's like a spotlight that is just like, here's where my head is. So you can hide behind like a barrel where only this much of you is exposed, and it's just, you get the headshot like nothing. So that's a little finicky for me. I'm not a huge fan of that change. And then to get into what I was talking about Battlefield, they've made Ground War be a little bit more of that like Conquest from Battlefield flavor. It is gigantic kind of open maps where you can play however you want. It's absolute chaos, but if you want to play it nice and slow and creep up to the top of a skyscraper and set up your sniper's nest and your claymores by the door, you can totally do that. It's really fun. It's a nice change of pace. 2v2 gunfight mode, also a nice change of pace. If you want to just quick snackable, like, I got 10 minutes to play and I want to get a couple games in, gunfight's really cool. It's just 2-on-2 tiny maps with the same people spawning with the same loadout that's randomized each time. It's really nice.
Okay, well, man, that's a really complete multiplayer package. I mean, I didn't know Kill Confirm was in it, so that's exciting for me.
Yeah.
I gotta poke around those menus some more. All right, we got one more mode to talk about, the Spec Ops / Survival mode. So Spec Ops is co-op, and then Survival is the mode that's exclusive to PS4. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
So what are your thoughts on those? Because I really enjoyed the co-op Spec Ops mode that was in previous Modern Warfares. So I'm super glad it's back. I'm a huge fan of like co-op versus hard PvE stuff. What do you think about that mode?
So speaking to Survival first,
okay.
Total Blast. I think it's supposed to be kind of their replacement for the Zombies mode. It's the PvE kind of like Horde mode style waves of enemies with the option to buy and refill weapons between each round. Difficulty amps up real nicely and gets mega hard. By the time you hit that 10th wave, you're just got like choppers and juggernauts like descending on your little hole. Full conceit that I think it is absolute booty that Survival is PS4 exclusive.
Ooh, harsh booty.
That is some booty. It is absolutely nuts to me to deprive another platform of an entire mode, especially one that is as fun as Survival.
Yeah, I'm on PC, so I get that in a year.
And it's a shame because like that I've had probably more fun playing Survival with like a full squad of friends that I know than some of the other modes where like it is completely collaborative and you have to work together. You cannot lone wolf that. The other one is Spec Ops, which this may disappoint some of y'all, but I actually really don't have much to say about it. It was largely forgettable for me.
Damn, I really like Spec Ops in old Modern Warfare.
I'm a little confused by what the like conceit is of Spec Ops here. I admittedly spent the least amount of time with it than any of the other modes, but it's like to me, from here, I don't know if they're going to add more to it, as they continue post-launch support. But it's not like Spec Ops that I remember from Modern Warfare 2, where it's like here's this series of different types of missions that are almost like arcadey with their difficulty and your scores and whatnot, and they provide you with a variety of different situations. Like one might just be a straight shooting gallery, while another's more stealth-based. Like this one was kind of, it drops you into it's like a Black Hawk Down situation where your helicopter goes down and you gotta like fend off waves of enemies until like the map then says, okay, well now you can like move back to this area, and then now the helicopter's gonna come and you gotta get everyone to the helicopter and evac. And it's like
it's almost Left 4 Dead-y, but wait, how is that different than survival?
Exactly, it's weird. It's like survival is a way more complete mode that just feels like Spec Ops just feels really tacked on, and like admittedly maybe I just really didn't give it the time and attention it deserved, but I played a few rounds of it and I was like, Okay. Like it's a shame that's the one that's not exclusive, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Maybe PS4 players wouldn't be so happy if they got the runoff, but now I'm unhappy because I don't get the cool mode. Well. I mean, it's hard to argue though with the campaign and the multiplayer being as pretty robust as it is. I mean, I'm just happy campaign's back. Yeah. Even if it is like what you'd say 2-3 good evenings of.
Yeah, it's not super long.
But the multiplayer sounds like probably be playing that for a while yet. So,
yeah.
What are your final thoughts on the whole game as a complete package? It is kind of weird to sum up, given that it is almost like 3 disparate games all smashed together.
Yeah, I mean it's less 3 disparate games smashed together than like last year's Black Ops 4,
which is weird.
Just straight up 3 different games. This one, like, there's still that through line where campaign missions inform what the multiplayer maps are. It's like locations from the campaign, and it feels like a more cohesive package. It does feel like the first Call of Duty game to kind of have that little twinkle in your eye magic that you got from COD 4, which I really appreciate as a huge fan of that game. And I think like whether they turn this into a games as a service, or whether, like you said, they do just outright make Modern Warfare 2 and confuse the hell out of everyone with the naming conventions, I think is like a step in the right direction. Is a really refreshing change of pace for the entire franchise, and like thank God they did it now. Because I don't know what this series could have looked like with like a Black Ops 5 or like another just space marine shitfest, you know?
Awesome. Well, there you have it. It's more tactical than ever. Call of Duty Modern Warfare out now. Thank you for watching Inside Gaming. Soap's back. Soap's back. Dad came back from the cigarette store. Miss you. Papa. Reboot of Modern Warfare is selling like hotcakes and breaking all kinds of records, even though it's only been out for a few days. It's already the best-selling game of 2019.
As it deserves to be. Well, the best-selling $60 game, but still.
Activision Blizzard announced the good news, and boy, did they need it.
Yeah, it's been a rough 2019 for Activision. It started off by laying off 800 people, saying it wanted to refocus on core